Thank you very much, and witness, welcome back. Prosecutor. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you, Your Honours. My apologies. Mr. Bromley, there are just 4 areas I wish to briefly cover in re-examination. And let me commence with the cross-examination by counsel for Mr. Sang relating to the travel times in Kenya. And I refer you in this regard to tab number 5, and in particular to page 0921. Please let me know when you have it.
I have it.
Now, with reference to the third entry, and that is the travel time by car from Sugoi to the Cass FM studios at Diani Road, Nairobi. My learned friend put to you that the travel time between those 2 points would be 7 hours. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Expressed in minutes, how long would that be?
420 minutes.
And would you agree that that is almost exactly the median between the 2 times that you have given? According to my calculation, the average would be 431 minutes.
But isn't that something we can all do the math at the appropriate time? Do we need to ask a witness that? Unless there's a question that rides on it.
No question, more of an observation, and perhaps it's one that the court may draw for itself. Thank you, Your Honours. If I can move on then to the questions that were put to you by counsel for Mr. Ruto. Firstly, you were taxed on the limitations of modus fire detection, and this was in the first session of cross-examination by Mr. Fowle, my learned friend. And in particular, you were shown the fire maps, fire detection maps, at tab number 8, and I refer to 00921514. In particular, you were asked about the bottom left-hand map dated the 29th to 30th December. Do you recall that?
Yes.
My learned friend pointed out to you that over the area, well, in the center of the map, you see what appears to be the town of Eldoret. And it was pointed out to you that over that area and surrounding areas, there were no fire detections for those 2 days, correct?
Yes.
Mr. President, I think my learned friend should precise his questions. I never suggested that there were no fires in Eldoret during those dates. The work I did with regards to this particular map is to show actually the fires that were listed there and not those that are not listed there. So I think I may have been either misunderstood or misquoted.
Point taken.
Yes.
Noted, but then what's your question?
Well, it wasn't clear to me what, in fact, the point of Mr. Fowle's questions were. He asked various questions about what appears on the map, but never then put any propositions to this witness. I had assumed that the purpose of this cross-examination was to show an absence of fires in the Eldoret, Greater Eldoret area on those 2 dates. But Since it wasn't clear to me, that was a supposition on my part. Perhaps my learned friend could clarify.
And perhaps instead of criticizing the way in which questions are asked, Council should not suppose what's not been asked. My questioning was very clear. All I was doing was to show that there were particular fires on this map, on certain areas, on particular dates. Where the Council understood the purpose of those questions is not for us. The fact is, we have identified that there were fires at particular locations on dates that are different from the dates that are the subject of this charge. That is important for us in our view. If Council does not see the importance, tant pis.
Be that as it may, Your Honours, I do not wish the court, the chamber, to be left with any misapprehension, so maybe I can just ask one or two follow-up questions.
All right, let's hear the questions.
Mr. Bromley, can any conclusion be drawn from the absence of fire detections in the area surrounding the town marked Eldoret on those 2 days?
As I've said, there are various reasons a fire wouldn't be detected by MODIS. Either it wasn't burning when the satellites were overhead, or perhaps it was too small, or perhaps it's at a phase in its burning where it's not quite active, which would be essentially similar to not burning. So it's possible there would be fires in that area that weren't detected.
Thank you. One follow-up question. You also mentioned during both your evidence in chief and cross-examination the effect of cloud cover on MODIS fire detection. Is that correct?
Correct. With any optical satellite system, cloud cover essentially obscures anything which would be detected.
And the fact that there are fires detected in other areas, does that tell us anything about the cloud cover over the Eldoret area necessarily?
I wouldn't want to speculate on cloud cover from fire detections alone. If you're seeing fire detections, you can infer that the cloud cover was light or non-existent in the area of the fire detections. But the lack of a fire detection does not necessarily mean there was cloud cover. Now, there are other ways to determine whether there were clouds in the area at the time, and that would just be to look at the raw imagery.
All right. One final question on this map. I noticed there that the 31st of December is not reflected on this map. Does that accord with your observations regarding the availability of data for this period? And please refer back to your report if necessary.
Right. I will refer to the report if you don't mind.
If I can assist, if you can perhaps look at page 0885 at tab 4, the final 4 lines of your results.
On 0885?
Sorry, 0886.
Right, so when I looked at the raw imagery, when I did this report, I found that the area was relatively cloud-free during the period of 31 December through 3 January.
And if you read on to the end of that section, please.
And was cloudy on 4 to 5 January 2008, which would have degraded fire detection capability on those days.
And the last
Gaps
sentence.
in MODIS coverage were present on 31 December 2007. So essentially, on that particular day, the orbit of MODIS did not cover, the orbit of the satellite that the MODIS sensor was on did not cover that particular location.
And would that account for the lack of data on that date?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to move on then to the topic of various maps that were shown to you in cross-examination, mainly derived from Google Maps and also Google Map satellite images. And you were text at some length on whether or not certain areas fell within or without certain geographical boundaries with reference to Google Maps. Are you able to comment on the correctness or accuracy of Google Maps data, specifically regarding geographical boundaries of particular towns or suburbs within towns?
No, I've used the data, but I can't quite assess how accurate or valid it might be.
In particular, you were shown a Google Map image or Google Map relating to the area of Kimumu. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And unfortunately on my copy it's a little washed out, but it's the map was shown to you at tab 1 of the defense bundle, Ken D090033 to 00330011. Do you have that?
Yes.
And perhaps the following map would be the better one at tab 2. That's, unfortunately, my copy does not have an ERN. Oh, there it is at the top. 00340001. Could we perhaps just pull that image up that I've just quoted? I'll read it again. It's 00340001. That's the defense exhibit. Right. What I can't see on my image, but it's more visible on the screen, is a shaded area just 45 degrees to the left and below the Y junction at which you've identified several destroyed structures. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Now, if I understand my learned friend's propositions, and I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong, the proposition was that this shaded area denotes the boundary of the area known as Kimumu. Is that what you understood the proposition to be?
Yes.
Are you able to comment, in fact, on whether this shaded area, well, on what this shaded area in fact denotes, whether it denotes a particular area or neighborhood or a geographical feature or anything like that?
No.
Your Honours, I would ask the court officer to please give the floor, and as mentioned earlier, I'd like to pull up a slightly larger scale or smaller scale image of this map so that we can see the extent of the shaded area on one photograph.
Now, we've all been, we've all been saying shaded area, different shaded areas. It would be more helpful if we made reference to any writings appearing, any legends in writing appearing. Which one are you talking about? I know you said 45 degrees to the left.
I will try to be more precise. On my screen, Your Honours, I see two shaded areas, and I realize there's some color variation. I'm referring to what appears to be a gray shaded area, which is roughly an upside-down triangle and contains red points marked in red.
Right, 1 second. Would it be where you, towards the top, you see Kimomo Primary School.
Yes, Your Honours, that would be the first point at the top, and just below that to the left, Kimumu High School, the area in which those are contained.
All right, so that is the shaded area you're interested in.
Indeed, Your Honours. Can I inquire whether the parties have this map? You'll have to switch to PC1 on your monitors. Do you have the image before you, Mr. Bromley?
Yes.
You'll see on that image there is a Y junction visible with point A just above the red point A on the map. See that?
Yes.
And between that Y junction and the town of Eldoret, you can see a shaded area in which the point A falls. Do you have that?
Yes.
Again, are you able to comment on what that shaded area might depict?
No.
I'm going to ask to...
Mr. Steinberg, again, we want the record to be clear. So we're now looking at a more distant image of the defenses 0001. Is that it?
Indeed, Your Honours. In fact, point A, if it helps, represents Kimumu Cathedral, which was what we searched on. It was visible on one of the grid maps the witness referred to. So essentially what we've done is zoomed out in layman's terms. And perhaps now if we can zoom in to the area surrounding point A, a bit more. And scroll down a bit. Other way. All right, and I think we can see now then that this is the same area there. You can see Better Farm to the right of that point. Do you agree that's the same junction we've been referring to?
Yes.
And to this area here. Down, up, other way. More. Stop there. Now, within that same shaded area, we've just zoomed in and scrolled down a bit. You'll see a reference to Kapsoya Catholic Church compound. You see that?
Yes.
All right. Now, I think my learned friends will agree that Kapsoya is a different area to Kimumu. Do you agree? Do you have any knowledge of that?
No.
Mr. President, I am wondering what is happening here. Is this another examination in chief, or these are issues arising out of cross-examination? Because it appears that my learned friend is now venturing into areas that are out of Kimumu. I do not know whether this map is intended to show the boundaries of Kimumu. If that is the case, we have not been told that yet. But it appears that really he's going out of the issues that have been covered during cross-examination. I leave it at that.
It appears he's re-examining on the basis of your Google map. Isn't that what you think is happening?
No. I think he's gone beyond that. He's now gone into areas such as Kapsoya. We've never mentioned that.
Isn't he telling us that he's zooming into the shaded area introduced in your Google map?
Yes, but I'm doing something different from what we did. and not anything arising out of what we did. But I leave it. Let him continue.
Yes, let's leave it. Let's see where he goes.
Your Honours, if I can clarify, the purpose of this is to counter the proposition, which, as I understand it, was put to this witness, that the shaded area on the map at tab 2 of the defence bundle, the limits of the shaded area denote the borders of Kimumu. What I intend to demonstrate is that there are areas identified as being part of Kimumu that fall outside the shaded area, and similarly, there are other geographical locations that fall inside the shaded area. And the conclusion, I would argue at the end of the day, is that the shaded area actually represents something completely different from a geographical location.
Mr. President, if that is the case, we are looking at completely different documents. The search result that we put before the witness was a search for Kimumu, and we presented the result as we got it from Google Earth. I personally know the geographical area, I know the location, and I know where Kimumu ends. What we are being given by the prosecution is a completely different document. In fact, it is a search result for Kimumu Cathedral. And as such, it would be difficult to assume that what is contained in that document is the same thing as what is contained in the documents the prosecution used. And also, when the witness was cross-examined, the defense was prepared to concede that other areas that are not depicted in here are also part of Kimumu. And if you recall, Mr. President, we looked at grid cells, which even show the Kimumu Cathedral and others. So we did not show the extent of all the places that constitute Kimumu. What we show is that this area in Beta Farm is not part of Kimumu. We did not show what is at the end of this map. And this is a product of a different search result from that of the prosecution. They search for Kimumu Cathedral, we search for Kimumu. This is the result we got, and as such, the documents are completely different in my view. It may appear funny, Mr. President, but that is the fact. We search for different things and receive different results. The important thing here is, what are the bond areas that are within Kimumu? And as far as I'm concerned, we are prepared to accept and look at all the grid cells from Junction all the way to Jerusalem, and then all those dots be counted. And we are happy to accept that. But the problem is, the document that the prosecution is using is different from the one we used. Let him identify the boundaries for Kimumu, and we can do the maths. We'll be content with that. Thank you.
All right, this is not something we can resolve right now. It is something that will be resolved during argument at the end of the day. But let's get the prosecutor's questions, and then we'll make those arguments later. Or you will, as counsel.
Your Honours, I think perhaps rather than reply to my learned friend, if I can just direct a question to the witness, and he, I think, will be able to clear this up. Mr. Bromley, regardless of whether we search for Eldoret Cathedral or, Kimumu Cathedral or Kimumu Primary School or St. Catherine's Kimumu Primary School, the area which is shown on this map, in particular the Y junction and the grey shaded area, is that the same area on a smaller scale? Does that cover the same area as is depicted in tab 2 of the defense bundle? That's defense document 00340001.
It depicts the same area, whereas the tab 2 depicts a smaller portion of that area.
And the grey shaded area you see on your screen, well, let me ask this. The top of the grey shaded area that you see on your screen, the roughly upside down triangular shape, just to the left of the Y junction and above the letter A. Can you comment on whether or not that would correspond with the area depicted on tab 2 of the defense binder?
To me, they appear to be the same shape at the top of the gray area.
Right. Your Honours, I think the rest can be left for argument. Thank you. Then I would just like to turn to your annotated atlas, certain of the pictures that you were, or the grids you were shown by my learned friend relating to Kimumu. And if the chamber will bear with me. Your Honours, if I can just ask to give the floor back to CMS, I'm going to ask for certain tabs to be pulled up. And if I can ask the court officer, please pull up what is B12, and that is Ken OTP 00920985.
What tab again?
It is tab 10 of the prosecution binder at grid sheet B12. And while that's being done, Mr. Bromley, if you can get in front of you again, defense tab B2. The ERN of the particular page again is 0985 for the court officer. And if you can just zoom in to the extent, that's fine, yes. Is it correct that we are looking at the same area, as in fact my learned friend pointed out?
Yes.
Now, I'd just like to get some clarity about the orientation of these two maps. You mentioned during cross-examination and indeed during evidence in chief that on your grid maps, true north is not directly up, but rather at an angle towards the left, as depicted by the north sign just below the A of Atlas. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if one were to orientate, and since we can't turn the computer screen, we will have to turn B2. If we were to orientate B2 to match the orientation of tab B2 to match the orientation of Atlas sheet B12, we would have to tip it down to the left, as it were, approximately 45 degrees, so that the stem of the Y formed by the yellow road runs top to bottom, roughly. Correct?
Correct.
Now, that road that we can see running top to bottom is the same road that disappears off the bottom of Atlas sheet B12 and presumably continues on Atlas sheet C12. Correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that that area, or that road, travels through the shaded area which my learned friends have identified as Kimumu on their version.
Yes.
Then one or two more questions on this point. If I can ask the
One
court...
sec. On C12, what is the mushroom-like structure we see in the middle? Do we know?
I was just going to ask the court officer to call up C12. That might be helpful. If we can please have C12 on the screen. It's 0092 1000. Can we just zoom in slightly, please? Mr. Bromley, I believe the President is referring to the round structure at the bottom of the image as it appears on the screen, at the bottom center. Do you recognize that structure?
As I pointed out, I think that's the Kimumu Cathedral.
And just for clarity's sake, if you could turn to tab 2 of the prosecution binder at ERN 0943. Does that represent the same structure, a closer image of the same structure?
I'm sorry, which tab?
Tab 2 of the prosecution binder,
Ah, yes.
the big one.
So yes, that's figure 10 in the tab 2 report.
Correct. You satisfied that then is Kimumu Cathedral?
Yes.
Very well. On C12 then, can you comment on the number of presence of definitely and possibly destroyed structures?
Mr. President, it looks like we are rehashing issues that have been dealt with during cross-examination. There is no controversy. We had counted the structures that were destroyed in C12. There was no dispute as to whether there were destroyed structures there or not. So I do not see the essence of this line of questioning.
If that's accepted, Your Honours, one last question on this issue. If we follow the road that is visible, sorry, if we go, well, let's ask if we can go back to the Atlas sheet and look at ERN 1015, that is sheet D12. Sorry, we're looking for D12. It's 1015.
And Mr. President, the same objection?
Which is?
That there is no dispute or disagreement that arose out of whether D12 is a continuation of the same road and is part of Kimumu. We in fact counted the amount of destroyed structures in that location, and it was agreed. There shouldn't be any difficulty with that.
I don't recall this particular Atlas sheet being referred to, but
it's page 33. If you look at line 12, you would see it.
But what's your question, Mr. Steinberg?
it was just to point out that this is the same road running down from the junction through Kamumu, and there are a number of structures that are destroyed there. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Fowle is not disputing that.
That is the point the cross-examination actually elicited from the witness.
Just one technical issue. My learned friend on various occasions put questions to you about points and areas on the map, on your satellite images. The grid sections in which the various locations that were given to you by the prosecution fall, do those grid areas represent any specific area, or are they arbitrary subsections of a larger image?
Do you understand that question?
Yes. Again, the grid sections used in the atlas are completely arbitrary. They were developed after the atlas was, or after the analysis was done, and are primarily based on how to divide up such a large image into a reasonable number of pages.
And a point, a grid reference, a point that is given to you, does that have any area, a coordinate? Does that have any area, or is it a point in an area?
It's simply a point with no area. And in the instruction letter I received, it identified them as approximate points.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steinberg. And witness, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of your stay with us. Thanks for your assistance in providing what information you have. At the end of the day, we will evaluate what the lawyers make of it. But thanks for coming, and safe travels back.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now, we will be adjourning for the day, and tomorrow we will reconvene for a status conference. As you have, counsel received the communication to that effect, right? Okay. We will convene again tomorrow at the indicated time. Thank you. Court will rise.
All rise, veuillez vous lever.